Good morning. Welcome to week 5. This week we're going to explore the theme of allowing and letting be. And I thought I'd start with this quote from Hafez. We have come into this exquisite world to experience ever and ever more deeply our divine courage, freedom, and light. And I think week 5 really requires courage. This is the week where I'm going to be guiding you through a meditation where we're going to be inviting in a difficulty. And the suggestion will be that you invite in something that's manageable, but nonetheless we'll be bringing in a difficulty. We'll be turning towards a difficulty. And this can be pretty counterintuitive, this concept of turning towards, being with. You know, I think there's a nice analogy, particularly this winter. I don't know, I suspect I'm not the only one who's been driving and hit a patch of ice this winter. And my impulse when I hit ice is to reflexively turn away from. And what happens when we turn away on ice? Our car spins, and that's really scary. The skillful response is to turn towards the ice, and then our wheels straighten and we can move forward. Today we're going to be turning toward. Franz Kafka said, "You can hold yourself back from the suffering of the world. That is something you are free to do, and it accords with your nature. But perhaps this very holding back is the one suffering you could avoid." Last week we introduced this concept of avoidance, aversion, resistance. And I gave you Shinzen Young's equation, suffering equals pain times resistance. And this equation is beautiful because we see it's the resistance that really augments the degree of suffering. It really ratchets up the pain, or rather the suffering. And if we can loosen our grip on the resistance. I didn't totally erase resistance because I think it's really a challenging thing to do. But if we can loosen our grip on resistance, then we're left with suffering equals pain. And certainly there's a lot of pain that people have talked about here in this room. Whether it's, physical pain from your cancer or cancer treatments, side effects, fatigue, insomnia, whether it's, infertility or changes in sexual vigor, mood states like anger, anxiety, panic, terror, sadness, depression, and all of those other changes in body image, changes in self-concept, changes in relationships. And then the big ones that we've also touched on, facing impermanence, meeting uncertainty. There's enough pain without resisting it. So this all sounds perhaps simple. And we know it's not simple. I was, just as an aside, having a discussion with my daughter a few nights ago, and she seemed to think I'm at risk of getting a tattoo, and I assured her that I have no plans to get a tattoo. And then walking into the hospital today, I thought, if I did get a tattoo, it would be kind of cool to have it say suffering equals pain times resistance. Because I know I need that reminder. I need the reminder to really try and loosen the grip on resistance. And last week when we talked about resistance, we talked about it in terms of aversion, the pushing away, the turning away from. And we also talked about it in terms of grasping onto what is and not wanting it to change. And all of you here in the room know that change is here. You face it every day. We probably face it every moment if we really look at it. That grasping on and not wanting things to change, the grasping for pleasures, and trying to really avert from the difficulties that are. It makes me think about a guy who I encountered when I was walking my dog to his dog sitter, and this man was sitting out on St. Clair. He was sitting in front of a Tim Hortons. He had a cushion that he was sitting on, and his legs were folded. They were nicely crossed, and his body position was upright, and his hands were gently folded in his lap, and he really seemed to have this beautiful, beautiful meditation posture, though he did have a Tim Hortons cup beside him where he was collecting change. And Finn, my dog, bounded over to him. Finn has this open-heartedness and enjoys people, whoever they are. And as Finn and this gentleman were making friends, I followed suit and started talking to him and found out his name is Stephen. And I said, Stephen, is it really worth it to you to sit out here in this cold, cold weather? And he said, well, today's not the coldest day of the year, and for sure it's worth it to me. You know, before sitting here, I used to survive on canned soup and box craft dinner, and now I'm able to feed myself chicken and ribs. And I said, I'm really glad that you found a way to look after yourself. And he responded by saying, well, it's really important for me to look after myself. I have a heart condition. It's called heart block. And in that moment, I felt so much compassion for him. And then I thought about my own heart block. Places where I put up barriers, where I turn away, where I push away, where I try and block my own suffering. He went on to describe how this heart block was discovered, how he thought he had a cold that was just lingering because he couldn't catch his breath, and then he started passing out, and one time he passed out and paramedics came and they took him to Emerge, where it was discovered he had this arrhythmia called heart block, and a pacemaker was put in, and he described that and how he has this electrical charge in his heart that keeps it pacing. And then he went on to talk about the air, how now he can breathe and how he so appreciates the breath. And as he talked about the breath, I was still thinking about heart block. And he was talking about the beauty of the breath and how air is all around us and how we're the only planet in the universe to have this air. And he said, take a breath. Just take a breath. And I was not really paying attention. And then he said it louder, take a breath. So I took a breath, and under his guidance, and there it was, this beautiful breath, cold breath, you know, the air froze in my nostrils and stung the back of my throat and was cold in my lungs. And I really admired how this guy was able to just sit with his own difficulties, to really be true to himself and honest and kind of see what he needs to nourish himself. You know, you could argue that ribs aren't the best thing for his heart, but we won't go there because he was making his way. He was being with what was difficult. And that reminded me of this poem, Enough. Enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here. This opening to life we have refused again and again until now. Until now. So now I'd like to invite you to take a comfortable position, and we'll begin a guided meditation. Thank you.